Hey everybody, it's Andrew. Hope we're all doing well. Recently, I have taken away a lot of my access to social media, specifically on my phone. And I think we all kind of go back and forth with social media. Like we've all heard, it's not really good for us to be on it all the time, and we can feel it. If you've taken a break from constant social media input and consumption, it's when you've consumed too much, and when it's time just to stop. And then at some point, it gets quite purposeless and undesirable to have it on there. So I think for me recently, I've just kind of lost the purpose and value to have social media on my phone and not have that much easy access to instant consumption and dopamine, as that's always been said, and that's true. So yeah, I saw no point to have it on my phone. Got rid of Instagram, TikTok, X, even YouTube, because I didn't really see a point to have YouTube on there, because I wanted to be aware where my attention was going. And cutting out social media, I think it opens some doors within you, and I think what seems more desirable, and I've leaned towards different things to replace time in between when I would usually go on social media and look at stuff. And it's been quite interesting, so I'm gonna share that with you. Now, if I wanted to go back on social media, I would have a specific purpose on why I go back. If that be to post something or to check something that I can't, look on just the internet, it has to be a specific purpose. And I'm only on there just to do that. I don't go and look at other stuff or keep it on my phone. I immediately delete it straight after I'm done using it. So one thing that I realized after deleting social media for a bit, and it's been about like 2 or 3 months now since I've just cut everything out, I never realized how much of my attention was kind of going towards it. When they say to be aware of where your attention goes and not consume too much, I was always on that boat and try to be aware of where I was going with that, what I was investing my time into. And sometimes you think that you're not consuming so much, or you're not, but then it becomes habitual to always have that conveniency to pick it up when you're like in between times or when you're just bored. And it's not necessarily bad as long as you don't lose control of it and you don't give yourself too much into it. But I don't feel like I ever got to that point, but I think it wasn't really somewhere I wanted to invest my energy to. You don't really realize how much you're giving into social media until you just completely cut it out, and you're like dang, that was really taking a little bit too much from me, even if it didn't really feel like it. And also, I think just because my age right now, I'm 23, and that's not really old, I know, but I feel like I'm getting to the point where I just don't really care about like things on the internet too much anymore. I just don't really care about what's going on or in what's trendy or what's in pop culture. I used to be kind of into that, but now I'm just fading away from that because I rather focus on other things, like more, like being honest, more boring things. I think from if you're like always in the loop of the internet, it's just priorities too. Things in life are just have my attention, and I can't give in so much on content and social media all the time. So, and I'll mention this one thing too, because I see this a lot in my life and the people around me, is the negative comparison trap people fall into with social media. You really have to remember yourself that everything on the internet, everything you see on Instagram or TikTok, it's all fake. Like, none of it's real. You can take in so much of that and compare that person's lifestyle or whatever accomplishment or that highlight they post, and compare it to yourself and just feel like you're lacking or something. I feel like when you see too much of other people's lives, you get so trapped in that comparison game. That trap will always be there, And as long as you can acknowledge it and be aware of the constant consumption of this stuff. But it particularly concerns me when I see people I know in real life that are affected by this, and they feel like they're lacking something. They don't feel confident with themselves, because I always see them like on Instagram or social media. They're always consuming and looking at other people's lives and what they're doing. And yeah, it's easy to feel like that when you see someone your age probably accomplish so much more, and you are just in nowhere near that. Like, if you're always seeing somebody's accomplishments, and there's other people like, yeah, there's so many people that can do so many things your age, and you can do them too, but constantly seeing that, I don't think it's not healthy. Now, you can definitely use it as a source of inspiration and motivation, but if you don't stay conscious and aware of how much you're consuming of that, and it becomes a trap. So, and to move on to another thing, I've also seen this as well in people in my life. This is my own observation of how I view it, but it seems like a lot of people nowadays are just sedated by social media and consumption of just content. Now, this is just how I view it, but it just doesn't really feel like I'm talking to a person, because it seems like people get so trapped within that habitual state of social media, or another term people like to call brain rot. Like, you feel brain rotted from just doom scrolling and constantly being on social media, and I find that quite concerning. And of course, especially with younger generations, younger kids, because that shouldn't be a way you navigate life when you're sedated by your phone. Feel the effects of that. You feel anxious, you feel not so sure of yourself, and kind of scared to engage with the world. And I think for me, that's really concerning, seeing that with people. And also, just it's quite difficult to engage with people as well, because it seems like they're just on another planet. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like I don't want to sound so mean, but it's just, I have deep concern for that, people who are so sedated by their phone. And I feel like there's a lot more nuances I can go with it, but it feels like people are just sedated by their phone and kind of detached from reality. Now, one last thing, we do cut out social media, and this is something that I discovered years ago, because it wasn't recently, but I've cut social media out in the past, and this is still very valid today. When social media doesn't have your attention anymore, it frees up a lot of empty space, is what I like to call it, just in your life. Because when you have free time, it's easy, like I said, convenient to pick up your phone and there you go, you got something else to do. But when you don't have that, you're faced with nothing, and that nothingness produces thoughts, produces boredom, maybe a bit of discomfort, because you don't know what to put your time to. And I think if you become so sedated by social media and you take it away, all the thoughts, emotions that were buried underneath, all that sedation start to come up. And I think that's a very important thing that someone can recognize and embrace, because if you're using social media to suppress something within yourself, or not be aware of certain thoughts within you, there's definitely a big consequence to that. And I think it's also just a way to discover yourself. You let your mind wander and have new ideas, possibly, and maybe think of thoughts that you wouldn't have had because you had your attention elsewhere. If I had to imagine what that looked like, it's like you have a VR set, like a headset or some glasses, that transport you to a different reality. You don't realize everything around you, because you've been so sucked into that world. You take it off and you finally see all that's around you, and then you finally start questioning, this is what I really want to be living around, thinking about, feeling. It opens up doors that I think everyone should probably consider exploring every once in a while. But social media overall, it's not bad, as long as you have good intentions behind it and you don't overconsume. But I think I would advise just to live life a little more without it. Only use it to post and create and share, but don't overconsume and don't get sucked into that world of sedation. I just like calling it that. It just feels like people are sedated by it. But that's all I got for y'all. Let me know what you think of social media, and if you ever cut out social media and start living without it a little more. Very interesting when I hear people talk about their own views and points. So, as I said, that's all I got for y'all. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all later.